is episode 504. And before we get into this episode, which discusses habits, routines, and rituals, we're going to do a quick review of the 5 trails of personal transformation, which I covered in last week's podcast. And trails is actually an acronym. And if you'd like to get some more information, please visit warriormindcoach.com. You can find where this is hosted with the show notes or listen to it on any of your favorite podcast platforms. But the T in it means take your past hurts where they belong. I'm not going to go into all of these again in detail because that's what I did last week. I just want to review this for you so it may cause some interest in finding out more. The R is reflection is part of your life. The A is for affirm your achievements. The I is to internalize the life lessons have given you. The L is live life as you believe you should. The S is straighten the way you think. And the 5, which is beginning of the 5, is set 5 priority goals. So when we look at transformation, there are some processes to it, and this is just 5 of them that I find really, really helpful when you want to intentionally create a personal transformation, or if you look back on some transformations that you have gone through already. So today we're going to be talking about habits, routines, and rituals. And so when I've been coaching clients, one of the things that I really, really listen to is words that individuals use. And many of my clients and many people in general use the word habits and routine interchangeably. And if you've been listening to the podcast for any length of time, you know that I'm a big believer that words have power. And the words we use not only describe, they create. And so when I help individuals distinguish the difference between habits, routines, and rituals, there is a subtle shift in perception. And once this begins, the person can then see and describe them differently. They act differently. And then almost like magic, the results change. So what is the difference between habits, routines, and rituals? Well, let's start with some dictionary type definition. A habit, an acquired behavior pattern regularly followed until it becomes almost involuntary. Brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, driving to work. All of these are habits. Smoking, whatever that might be, those are habits. It's a customary practice or use. Perhaps shaking hands. Well, maybe not so many shaking hands these days, but elbow bumps. A particular practice, custom, or usage. So these are habits, a dominant or regular disposition or tendency. Basically, a habit is something that is done over and over again. Addiction, especially to substances, is a habit. It could be drugs, it could be cigarettes, it could be alcohol, it could be sugar. All these things are habits. But when we look at a habit as an individual and standalone behavior, such as smoking, negative thinking, or even positive thinking, sometimes that is completely unconscious. We don't think about our habits. We just do them. They've been so ingrained, we just automatically do them. The individual is almost totally unaware that they are performing the habit. And so it's very unconscious. Now, let's just take a look at routines. Is a customary or regular course of procedure. Commonplace tasks, chores, or duties must be done regularly or at a specified interval, typically or everyday activities, routines around the office, regular, habitual. Routines could be like working out. You have a workout routine. You have certain routines that you go through. Part of routine may be brushing your teeth before you go to bed, but the brushing is the habit. So you have routines. It's when you do something, when you perform a different task. And actually those routines can be filled with habits, but routine is something that you do every day. You read the book every day, or you watch TV every day. Those are routines, and there's still, many of them are done without thinking. And a routine can be looked at as a set of actions that have an outcome in mind. Working out, driving to work, etc. A routine is also unconscious in that the difference between a routine and a habit is you can look at a routine as a series of habits that have a specific end result. So habits can build into a routine. And again, both of these are unconscious. A ritual, it's an established form for a ceremony, specifically the orders of words prescribed by, I'm just going to say religious ceremony, but it could also be a spiritual ceremony here. It's a ritual observance, specifically a system of rites, ceremonial act or action, an act or series of acts regularly repeated in a set, precise manner. So there is some sacredness about rituals. And a ritual is a completely different way of performing a task or a series of tasks. A ritual is performed with mindfulness and awareness. This is the big difference. And a ritual doesn't have to be associated with a religious or a spiritual practice, but it does require to be here now. So when we start looking at these differences, the rituals has more of an intention behind it. It has more purpose behind it. There is mindfulness associated with creating a ritual. And what I like to work with my clients is taking some of the routines like reading or meditating and making it more of a ritual. So if you meditate, do you create space for it? Do you dim the lights? Do you create this sacredness around it, being mindful of it? Or you just plop down on a couch and meditate, which would be a routine. So when we look at these three actions, the one thing that separates them is mindfulness, which is being 100% aware of what you're doing. And you can turn a habit or routine into a ritual simply by being mindful. And here's the great thing. As soon as you become mindful of what you're doing, you either stop doing what you're doing, if it's a bad habit, or you will enter the zone and experience bliss. So when we start looking at our activities that we perform daily, we have some habits, and they're good to keep habits, right? It's just non-thinking, it doesn't take a lot of energy. And we have routines. Routines are great to help us systematically get to a desired outcome, whether it's cooking dinner, working out, or whatever that might be. But when we want to change ourselves, change our energy, change our outcomes, when we become mindful, we can take a routine. So let's just say smoking, and you wanted to quit smoking, but it's such a habit. It's not mindful. You go out and hang out with people, you light up a cigarette, it just becomes a habit. And the routine is at coffee break, you go out and smoke. If you made it into a ritual and you still wanted to quit, and you purposely saw and realized how you were striking the match or lighting a lighter and purposely putting the cigarette in your mouth and made it a ritual by being mindful, there has been evidence to say that that is a quicker way to quit smoking, is being mindful about what you're doing than trying to break that habit. When we become aware of what we're doing, we then can determine the effectiveness of what we're doing. When it becomes a habit, then we are just habitual, right? We're just programmed to do whatever we want to do. So if you want to change an aspect of your life, if you want to become more centered and focused, if you want to quit something or start something, first start making it a ritual. Put some sacred space around it. Be mindful about the task that you're doing, even if it's cooking. So let's say you're going to be, you're kind of not real happy with your cooking skills, but you would really like to bump them up a little bit. Instead of printing out a recipe on the internet, going and get the stuff, putting it on TV, watching TV as you're cooking, bring all the ingredients on the counter, light a candle, put on some soft music, get everything set up correctly, put out all of the ingredients on the counter that you're going to have. Then start to cut and measure and weigh them and put them in the separate bowls, and just be mindful about how you are preparing the meal. Make it a ritual, and then watch how the flavors explode. Watch how it's much more fun. Watch how you will actually do a better job at it because you're mindful about it. So the point here is we do have habits, we do have routines. Very few of us have rituals. And if you want to change an outcome, practice making the routine into a ritual and see what happens. So next time, it's going to be up for grabs. We'll see what's going to happen. You can visit warriormindcoach.com for more useful information and the show notes from this podcast. Please also follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest under Warrior Mind Coach.